Hey, it's special guest Sienna Wilson.
It's Hannah.
It's Shiloh.
Camila.
And Aubrey.
For those who are new here, this is Mics.and.Mischief, where we will dive into questions and topics that are important to Gen Z. Each week, we will bring you fresh insights, intriguing concepts, and thought-provoking conversations. So grab your headphones, get comfy, and let's get into it.
As a group, we've decided to have special episodes where there's a specific theme for the whole episode. And this is one of those episodes, and the theme of this episode is situationships, talking stages or dating questions in general. So first we're going to give a small bit of background about what a situation or a talking stage is. Then we'll give our brief thoughts on them. And finally, we're going to have a call-in where listeners can call in and ask questions that we will answer. Make sure you stay tuned to the end because it's only going to get better. Let's start off with what a talking stage or a situationship is for those who don't know.
All right, depending on the situation, no pun intended, talking stages and situationships are basically the same thing, but from my perspective, situationships are more deep in there. So it's like more than friends, but less than lovers. So you're kind of just stuck in the middle of not wanting to commit with each other, but you guys want something more than just being friends. Like you get all the benefits of a relationship, such as like kisses, cuddles, and all that jazz, but you're not committed to each other. So it's just, you're kind of just there.
Yeah. And sometimes, depending on the situationship, like you don't even get the benefits. You just like you're more than friends. But like even sometimes it's not even a talking stage.
Like nobody wants to make a move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, like you can't get mad if they get with someone else.
Exactly.
But you do get mad. You do in fact get mad.
But like if you say something, they're gonna be like, but we're not even together, so why are you mad?
So it's more of an excuse than, it's more of a scapegoat if something goes wrong, because then you can easily just bail, which I don't think is, able in a relationship, because in a relationship you kind of have to talk about it.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So it brings up the big question, are situationships worth the time, emotion, and effort? What do you guys think?
To be honest, I think if you guys have intentions of getting together and like you're both on the same page about it and you're both like, okay, yes, we are going to get together, this is going to happen, and there's no like secrets or anything with it, I mean, situationships aren't that bad. I feel like you can kind of look at it as like a talking stage in those situations, but if it's like just kind of like, oh, I don't know what we are, oh, I don't know, we can come hang out, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Then it's like, I don't even think that's worth your time.
Yeah, I also agree. I think situationships are a complete waste of time, because why aren't you together? Like, if you both like each other and there's no one else, like, why aren't you together? Because there's so many reasons, like, are your parents not okay with it? And, like, it's just a waste of time at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's worth having a situationship for a certain amount of time.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, I'm kind of tired of this, you know?
Yeah.
You might not even want to get into, like, a relationship if you've been in that situationship for such a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
How long do you think is too long?
A year.
I think a year, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely not.
Okay, I feel like, because there's also so many like different types of situationships. Like if it's like that kind of thing where it progresses over time and it's like, oh, you're friends at first, but now a few years later, oh, you're more than friends, but now you're like, oh.
Right, like where it's something serious.
Right, but if it's something like where you're immediately like, oh wait, this person's cute, like wait, like, I kind of like them. And then it lasts for like
3 months.
3
What's
months.
happening here?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like you should begin to question it at 3 weeks. When it's like 3 weeks in, you don't know what it is, and it's never been talked about, I think that's when the situationship should be done.
Okay, what happens? What happens if you address a situationship and you're like, okay, like what's going on here? And then they're like, what do you mean? What do you do then?
Well, then you know it's not a real thing.
Speaking from experience.
I feel like if most people don't ask what are we, because then they're gonna feel like I look stupid. I mean, obviously the other person doesn't have an idea either, but at least they look like they do. But if you come up and you're like, so what are we? It's like, are you stupid? Like you've been in a relationship for 3 weeks and you don't know. But it's like, you feel like you look stupid, but you don't. You're just curious. You need to know what your relationship is if you want to move on with this person.
Honestly, if you have second like doubt doubts in asking that person, what are we, then you know it's not going to be a thing. Because, like, if you're comfortable enough with them to be like, oh, what are we, then you know it's something serious. But then if you're not, it's just like, it's kind of just like a little fling.
It's time to pack up my bags and go.
And then there's also like one-sided situationships and talking stages where like one person is way in too deep and the other person is kind of just there. So like if it's two-sided and it's something serious, I mean, go for it, do whatever you want. But like if it's just one person overthinking and experiencing the pain from the situationship that they're having while the other one is chilling, talking to other girls or talking to other guys, then it's just like you're kind of just left hanging. So
That's so weird.
but you know, I wonder why you're silent. That's so weird.
Anyway.
That's so weird.
Okay, so now I think you have to dive into the fact of like what's the purpose specifically of situationships, and we have to also look at what's the purpose of the trend of situationships and how do these also affect our culture and society.
I think that our generation just doesn't like commitment, and since they're not really like with any of them and they're not committed to any of them, none of them can say anything about it. So you're just kind of there.
Yeah, I don't even
That's
know,
so true.
Yeah, like I don't even know what like the origin story is of a talking or situationship. It was just like brought up out of nowhere. People started calling it a talking stage or a situationship. A situationship, I think, is what comes after a talking stage. It's where like, well, I mean, it is a situationship. It's like where things are starting to get there and deep. Like y'all have been talking for more than a couple of weeks or months, so it's you're getting closer to a relationship. But at the same time, either one person or it's a mutual thing where it's like, I don't know if I want to commit to you yet, but I do want something more with you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why situationships are so hard, because situationships come in all forms. You know, some people don't talk before there's a situationship, and really at the core of a situationship, you know there's two people and you know that you're more than friends, but you don't know what that looks like yet, and there's oftentimes so many different factors that go into it that you're really just not sure if you could even commit to a relationship. And that's why situationships are so hard, because everyone's looks different, you know? And so how does this trend affect culture and society? Well, that's a hard question. But I think at the end of the day, it just really leaves people confused, you know?
It leaves people confused, but also, like Aubrey said, teens don't like commitment and they don't like the sense of, like, knowing there would be pressure in a relationship. You know, and so I think that also affects our culture, because it gives us the option, you know, and like then a lot of people use that option and some people abuse it.
Absolutely.
Yes, most definitely.
Do you think that a situationship is like the teenage equivalent to a one-night stand, but just longer?
I mean,
No, low key. I
That's
wouldn't be
true.
surprised.
A sneaky link is like,
Oh, oops. No, I
one-night
forgot sneaky
stand.
links
Yeah.
existed.
Some people get toxic in situationships.
Yeah.
Because, like, they'll be all up on you and get, like, very possessive if you start, I don't know, taking interest in another person. And they'll be like, why are you talking to that person? And be like, well, we're not together, so, like...
No, yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing. You're not allowed to get mad.
Coming from the other side of it.
It's so strange though whenever like you're a situationship and it's a conscious thing. Like you both know, but then you start talking to someone else. Like, you know, like
Right.
like why is that happening?
What do you do if you find out you find yourself in a situationship? You didn't want a situationship, you want a relationship, but you find that the other person is not all for that.
Be
And-
direct. Like
Block
tell them what you
them.
want. Like tell them what you
Oh
want.
my gosh, we have the queen of ghosting and blocking right here.
oh my god. No, if it turns into something that you don't want, you definitely have to tell them and block them or ghost them. But I don't know. I mean, you can like maybe keep them
Block them and ghost them merch coming out soon.
literally.
Maybe talk it out. That's
Maybe
what Hannah
talk
would be
it out.
Talk
talking
it
about.
out and then block it out.
Communication is important,
The fact,
but
but like, I don't know, because I always feel like I find the people that's like, oh, like, we're not talking. Like, that's not what this is. So it's like you can't really communicate with them if they don't think that's what it is and they don't think the same things as you. So it's just like there's no point in even trying to talk to them because they're not going to get your side of it.
yeah. And it really
Yeah,
depends
that's
on the
true.
person. 'Cause,
Yeah,
like,
it does.
It really does. Because if you have a mature person to talk with this thing out, well, like, go ahead and communicate. But if it's someone, like, so closed off, not willing to hear you out, and are only, like, thinking about their feelings, you gotta go.
That's so true.
Personally,
Also, like,
yeah.
people that are insecure are the worst because, especially if there's more than two people in the equation and they're uncertain if one of them likes them, they're already insecure and they're not gonna risk it and be like, okay, like I like you maybe than this other person. They're just gonna leave it because they're not sure, like, what if this person doesn't like me? And they're so afraid of rejection that it's like it's not worth it for them. Like all the anxiety that the possible rejection brings to them, it's not worth it.
Right.
Sometimes it is though. You just need to be brave enough.
Sometimes it is.
You
absolutely.
just need to have that confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
And you just need to be able to be like, I'm okay not being in a relationship because that's not the quality of relationship that I need.
Yeah.
Or that I
Yeah,
want.
that's what I was about to say. Like, if you're like what Shiloh was saying, if you're like talking to someone and they're only considering their feelings and they're not going to talk to you about it, you don't want to be in that relationship anyways.
Right.
So, in addition to our call-in segment, a lot of questions that listeners sent in had to do with guys and their reactions to things and certain situations. And we really felt like as a group that guys should have a little bit of input and see what they have to say about things. So we have two guys today that are going to kind of help us out. One of them, his answers are in the form of call-in. So he's going to call in. And then another one is in the form of texting. So I'll ask him all the questions that listeners had, and then he'll kind of text me the answers, and I'll read them out. And real quick shout out to our call-in and our text-in. Call-in is Carson Phelps, and Braden is Braden Wright. These guys literally took this job last night. I called them at like 11, and they said that they'd help me out. So shout out to you guys. Whenever we're going through these questions, we're going to have kind of the groups, ideas, and discussion on it, and then we're going to go to what the guys have to say about it and see their opinion. The first one is, do guys chase the thrill of the hunt or connection in a romantic relationship more?
I think it depends on the
I agree with
man.
that.
Because there's some that are actually like willing to be romantic and stuff, and there's one who are just.
I agree with that. Coming from the response from one of the guys, he says, I would say that this is a part of guys' maturing process and something God needs to grow you in. A lot of guys seek attention and the thrill. More mature guys will seek to actually know a girl, and less mature guys will seek the thrill.
Yeah, I think this man is emotionally intelligent and
Available.
So our second question would be, why are guys so emotionally distant and shut off?
Because they've been hurt in the past.
I think it's
feel
like a. Oh wait, go ahead.
I feel like they all start with good intentions, or or insecurities, or they've just had past experiences where somebody else has taken advantage of their feelings. And I feel like because many don't want to admit that, but they've been hurt, then they close off and they don't give nobody else a chance. And again, insecurities, or it might not be that they were personally hurt, but they've seen how somebody's been hurt for being emotionally open and available and vulnerable, and so they're like, well, I'm not doing that, that's not for me. And so we can see that their relationships are superficial.
And some like men, when they're around their friends, they switch up as well. I think it really depends on who they hang around with and what influences them in their lives.
And what positive relationship, what role models do they have in their lives? Because we can see that the way that your parents' relationship is affects a lot on how you are in a relationship, what you look for, and how you treat somebody.
But like there are also ones who are just downright cruel, who have loving parents, but then they choose to be this walking red flag among other women just because they want to, or because they can. It really depends on the person, and it doesn't even matter whether it's either gender, because it's always going to be up to you how you want your romantic life to go, and if you want it to be toxic or if you want it to be healthy, it's up to you and the person you're with.
And what Braden said on this one is, I think it has a lot to do with fear. Guys are scared to be vulnerable because it looks like weakness, and they're worried it will affect their image. All that to say, I think that there is a point where dating is not marriage, and you shouldn't be too emotionally connected when just dating. What do you think about that, Carson?
A lot of times I think guys, we be less emotional. We're more factual people just by nature. Based on statistics, guys will make most of their decisions 85% of the time based on fact. Makes it harder sometimes in those situations because you, as women and as females, you guys are made to be you just have a little bit more emotional tendency, which is normal. That's how you were created. It can be really tough sometimes when we don't know how to regulate that or understand what's going on there, because we're like, what? We don't feel all this stuff all the time. Dude, we do have emotions for sure. It's just not as large scale because we just don't have as many, or we feel like we don't understand, so we're just going to step away and not talk about it. Depending on the situation, playing hard to get sometimes, that can be attract. It really just depends on the guy, anything like that. But sometimes we do enjoy the chase, especially if there's like another guy interested. It could be like, oh, this is almost more of a challenge.
Men tend to distance themselves before they can finally realize that this is a relationship that they can be vulnerable in.
Yeah.
And someone that they can trust in this relationship. Fear comes into play.
You also have to ask
Past
yourself, am I
experiences.
making this a safe place? Like, is this relationship a place where they feel like they can be open with me? Because if you're making a hostile environment, you know, if they feel like they can't be emotional with you and be open, then maybe you have to ask, is it because this person, you know, is this way? Or is this because I'm making an environment where they don't feel like they can share with me?
It's about trust between each other as well. If you guys don't have trust, if you guys aren't willing to be open to each other or honest, it could honestly lead to something more toxic. So yeah, I agree with you, Camilla.
Absolutely.
And if you're not expecting a serious relationship and you're not ready to dedicate that, then don't expect vulnerability.
Question number 3. How do you guys feel about being the pursuer?
This generation, I feel like the roles are being switched. Traditionally, it's always the guys who do the courting, but like they're the ones who usually pursue the other party. But in this generation, I guess the women also pursue the men.
And Brayden, our text in, said, I would definitely say that being the pursuer is definitely stressful, but also something that men are made to do. I think that relationships function better when men lead and also act as the pursuer, but it is a really hard thing to do, and a lot of men, me included, struggle with it. What do you think about that, Carson?
I think, it just really depends on the guy. I mean, because we live in a generation where it's harder and harder to get guys to do that, I think you could say. Harder for guys to just like step out, take a leap of faith and say, hey, I kind of like this girl. Overall, I think that for sure we do enjoy being the pursuer, but it also just depends on the guy and depends on the girl for sure.
Yeah.
Which I think like Brayden's response is so honest and vulnerable in that state, because a lot of men do struggle to be the pursuer and actually like initiate a lot of things, which is how they're created to do. So I agree with that response.
I agree to an extent. Do I feel though that like it always has to be men initiating it? No, because a way that you show your love or you know your care for a person is by initiating things. So if it's always the man initiating, how can they feel it's a mutual relationship if they're always the one who have to initiate things?
Exactly.
And so I feel like it should be both initiating, and I feel like if you feel like you're initiating as a guy or as a girl everything, you need to talk about that.
Right.
Especially because he mentioned like it's stressful and like it's always on me. Then that's not because of a lack of masculinity. That's a lack of vulnerability.
Exactly.
That's a lack of telling somebody else, I'm doing this all the time and I feel like it's always on me and it's expected always of me, but I feel like you can reciprocate it as well. And I'm not saying that it's not my job. I'm just saying it's not yours.
Right, and I think that might be a misconception and a misunderstanding in today's society, which is that you, in order to be the pursuer, you don't have to initiate everything. Like, you're, like, if that makes sense, like, you have the role of the pursuer, but the other person still has a responsibility to initiate conversation, to initiate things, and it's not just, like, you have this role and for our relationship to grow through you.
Right.
But really, like, it's a partnership.
Exactly. And in more simpler terms, it's just returning the energy. If we want to put it in Gen Z terms,
Technology.
yes, I do agree with like men pursuing the woman, but I also agree with Camila's point of view where the woman also has to initiate. It really just depends on how much you're willing to be vulnerable to the other party and stuff.
This one's kind of goofy. Question number 4 is, do guys actually like facial hair? Ladies, do we have any comments on this?
Like on girls or on guys?
Or like
No, on themselves. On themselves. No.
Are we saying that we want girls with mustaches?
No, like, do guys genuinely like facial hair on themselves?
I think they like it because it makes them look more mature, not because they think it looks better.
Yeah, so Brayden says, this one is interesting, crying emoji. I would say that guys genuinely do like facial hair much more than girls do, especially weird facial hair.
What's weird facial hair? Like
just like
goatee?
one single strand. Like shout out to my cousin. If he
Oh my
listens to this, he's gonna kill me.
He said it's kind of fun to have a little beard or mustache when you can start to grow one. What do you think about that, Carson?
I love it. Like, I want to grow a beard. I have a mustache right now and I enjoy that, but some guys do not. And it's really just one of those things where there's stages to facial hair for sure. Like the first couple, it's going to be like really itchy. And so that a lot of guys can't get past that stage. But then once you get past those stages, it's not terrible.
Shout out to all the boys in the fourth period hallways. I be seeing that. Hello. I be seeing that ghost of a mustache on the lip. I know y'all trying.
Diminishing our male audience by saying this right now.
And girls too, you need to shave it. It does not look good.
Question number 5. Why do some guys think it's so attractive to be nonchalant and be a dry texter?
Bro,
Who finds that attractive?
no one finds that. I think they do it for themselves and not for the person. Because, like, I mean, I guess I kind of like it because when you're talking to a quote-unquote nonchalant man, they do open up to you as you go through with that relationship.
Right.
Okay, don't side-eye me, Camila. I didn't know what you meant. But, I think they do it just because, to be honest. Or, like, they grew up not really expressing their feelings, so they're always quiet, and then they seem that they're nonchalant or mysterious, but they in general they just don't know how to express their feelings.
That's good.
And like some people do it just to do it, to make themselves feel better about themselves and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love what Brayden had to say on this one, which was that I would say that this has a lot to do with ego and also insecurity.
Right.
Dry texting makes you not have to pursue as much, and it also makes you look like you have more of a status. It makes the girl feel like you're not as interested, and that she has to chase you. I will say...
Like the hard to get thing.
Yeah, no, it's good. And he also said, I will say, though, that a lot of guys would prefer talking in person, and texting just isn't much of a connection, which is also another thing that our other Colin said, which is that a lot of guys just genuinely prefer to talk in person rather than texting. Brayden also said, I personally hate texting. I think there's a balance where you can not text a whole lot, but also be intentionally dry.
Right.
And just essentially doing that to make yourself look cool. What do you think about that, Carson?
I personally, I do text, but I'd rather have a real conversation, at least over the phone or in person. And so sometimes I feel like guys just are like, oh, texting. It also really depends on the guy and the person and what's going on in the relationship or friendship or whatever the situation might be. For me, like, it just depends. Just depending on the person, it can be because they think they're too cool or they don't want to, but I don't know. Usually I think it's just because we don't realize that we're trying to be that way. We're just doing it. We're just giving you a dry answer even though we're not intending to make it dry. It just happens that way.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like, I'm not a texter and I tend to leave people undelivered. But like, when I'm talking to you in person, I will engage with you.
Right.
So I think I don't like texting either. So I completely agree with that. But their ego and pride also comes into play.
Absolutely.
When
and
it comes to their exactly. When it comes to their attitudes towards whoever they're trying to get with. So
I feel like anybody who knows me knows. Anybody out there who knows Camila Flores in person, you know that she's not nonchalant, even if she tried. So I guess that's just not for me. I don't like being treated by somebody who's nonchalant. I don't like pretending to try and be like. I tried a day where I was like, I'm gonna be mysterious. I'm gonna be.
I gave up.
I'm gonna be dark. I ain't gonna laugh. I ain't gonna do nothing.
5 seconds later, I don't want to do this anymore.
Bro, I did not last 5 minutes.
And, okay,
that's not for me.
We can like attach this question to is also the question of, do guys like being the pursuer? Once again, we can see how, like, yes, maybe the guys do like being the pursuer, but a lot of times it can be so scary to put yourself out there and to be vulnerable in that way.
Right.
And so in this, question 5, Brayden was also really talking about if you're nonchalant, you really are almost like dismissing the role of being the pursuer, and you're pushing it on to the other person to say, like, if I'm going to be mysterious and if I'm going to have this kind of status, you're going to have to.
Let's hear a girl's experience of a situationship happening right now. Thank you so much for calling. So do you want to tell us about your situationship?
Okay, so I just started a new job, and I have this manager, and he's a little freak. Okay, so he's really weird, and he's my age, so don't like freak out about that. He's not like a creepy old man or anything. Put me on his schedule so that I'm working with him, which like I would get if he was like the general manager, since I'm new, so he could train me. But he's not, and he doesn't train me. Like, he just has me on there so I can be there at the same time as him. And then he says he makes like weird jokes a lot. Like he makes very weird jokes. Like he will like I was literally like standing there, like I was not doing anything. He was like, "Bro, are you casting a spell on me?" And I was like, "No, like can I just stare off into the and, and he was like, "No, like you're totally like cursing me right now. Like you're gonna curse me with an STI. What do you mean? Where did it even come from? Why are you talking about so he's really weird. Like, and one day we we were working, and then he was like, "Hey, like, how old are you?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm 17." And he was like, "Oh, really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "I'm 26." I was like, "Okay, you don't really look 26." And he was like, "Do I not look 26?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "How old do I look?" And I was like, "Well, you look like you're in like your young 20s, like at most 20 years old." And he was like, "Yeah, like I'm actually 18. I'm actually 18. I'm not 26. So like if I was 26, I wouldn't be working here." Why did you need to say that? You did not need to say that. But
Yeah. What the?
and then whenever he calls me in, he'll be like, "Oh my gosh, please come in. Please, can you please come in, please?" Like, I have the yeah. So that is the situation, and it isn't bad. It's just weird because he's my manager.
Right.
Like, it's
Yeah.
just it's a goofy situation.
Okay, so do you like him?
I don't think so. Like, he's really cute, but like, I would not ever date him because he's my manager.
Yeah, it's a situation. Right, that's so strange. Do you guys talk at all, like, outside of work?
No, not really. Like, I try not to. So
Yeah.
That's code for he calls and I ignore it.
Yeah, I think that's like a really weird situation. That's like
I don't even know
among
what I
the
would
strange.
do.
I don't know what I would do, honestly. Like that's like the hard.
I feel like, is it not a normal situation for people to have? Like,
Okay, yes. Okay, I think it is because a lot of people do have like those kind of situations where like them and a coworker or someone at work, like there's something going on there, even if like in your situation there's not, like someone has
right.
the other. I think that's normal. I think like some of his comments aren't normal though. Like why would he say he's like 26? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense logically. And like wouldn't that turn
Right.
you off if like you potentially were interested to be like, oh, this person's like 8 years older than me. Like
Maybe some
Yeah, exactly.
like older.
yeah. But then like
Yeah,
that's
maybe we
such a
should call-
strange like fetish almost, you know? Like that's
Weird thing to say.
like assume about someone.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
So what are your ideas on like how to handle the situation? Or are you just gonna like leave it?
Like, I'm probably just gonna leave it and see what happens. But he genuinely, like, he started talking about like love a lot more. Like, they have like headsets, and then he started talking about like, "Bro, like my ex was so bad to me. Like, there's no such thing as love anymore," and like whatever. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't need to know that. I really didn't need to know that. And I will not be giving you genuine love in this generation. Sorry.
I can't fix that for you, sorry.
But yeah. But that's the situation. Thanks for listening.
Alright, well that's going to wrap up this podcast episode. Let us know any comments, questions, or even possible segment ideas you would like to hear. Also, if you would like to be featured or join us on an episode, you can find the link on our social media. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Spotify. Until our next episode, keep exploring, stay curious, and thanks for being a part of the Mics and Mischief community. See you next time!